Good morning. So, first question is about personal journey and inspiration. Who or what inspired you to pursue fashion design?
I have always loved fashion since I was a kid. I remember drawing clothes a lot. And then when I was maybe 10, a tween, I would remember seeing that some of my drawings or similar to them would be in the mall. So that got me so excited. But life happens. Sometimes you need income. So I worked in advertising instead of working in a magazine. I wanted to be a fashion designer. But when I turned 35, I felt like I'm getting a bit older and it's really been in my bucket list to do fashion, whether it's designing, working in it. So I was working in a telco company and then I was going to take a career break in 2022, and it just so happened that I got called by a headhunter in a retail company and they wanted to promote to be the head of marketing. So naisip ko, similar naman, fashion brand sila na malaki, I study fashion, maybe I will learn, so I did that. But after a while, I said, this is still different from design and owning my life. So I took a break. I finally did it. I took a short course in Supa. And then I said that short course will be better instead of a three-year course. So whatever money I would have spent on a full course, I spent on releasing my own line, putting up my own business since starting from scratch. And at that time I was 37 and my mom was turning 73. Which is why the name of my business was 3773. And she was really the inspiration for this because my mom, if you met her maybe 10 years ago, she was like the most confident woman. Like she would wear anything, she would fabulous. And then when she got older, nearing her 70s, she would always ask me what she's wearing for. She would be more self-conscious. And even friends my age in their 30s or late 30s, because you know you give birth, your body changes metabolism, they also started feeling conscious and they would say na parang gusto kong ibahin yung style ko, iba na kasi kung versus my 20s. So my mom and those women are my inspiration. I want to design clothes that make them feel comfortable but that are still playful kasi I don't want them to feel like I'm old, so I need to cover up, I need to wear sleeves, I need to be in black, white basics. No, you should always have fun in the same way that I did. I was young, so I don't want to forget that energy and the youth.
It's actually like quite nice to know about your background, and it's quite like, unique in a sense, especially the branding name.
Yeah, that's the story.
It's very witty.
I couldn't think of anything, so I might as well use the age. And it's like 37, 70. And then
For the next question, why Filipino fashion in general?
sorry, why?
Why Filipino fashion? Why did you choose it? Why did you choose it?
Why do I want to do it?
Yes.
I want to do it I want to be able to, these are clothes that I want to be able to wear. They're very playful, they're very versatile, so I'm hoping that with the designs I release, it helps people support local designs also. So,
How long have you been in the fashion industry?
I have been in it for 3 years. 3 years.
Now, for the next segment, these questions focus about external forces like technology, globalization, and international competitions. In your opinion, what are the key factors that influence fashion trends today?
I think a big factor is social media. You can easily see what's happening everywhere in the world. There are so many influencers who, I guess, the younger generation or even older would look at and be inspired by. I also think that it's also driven by emotion now in terms of how fashion should fit your values, whether it's being more sustainable to help the environment, whether it's relating to your personality. If you love K-pop, then you tend to dress a certain way, or Japanese fashion. So I think those are the factors.
Next is, what role does globalization play in shaping modern clothing styles?
Globalization, I feel, adds to the creativity and how people put together what they wear. We're seeing it a lot. Like, even if you look at local fashion, there are designs that bring in local elements in fabric or silhouettes, but there are also hints of how other cultures, there are also hints of fashion from other styles. So it's mixing them together, and again, it's being more creative in how you put your outfits together. Repeat.
Next is, from your perspective, how do local fashion brands differ from foreign fashion brands in terms of design and quality?
I will have two answers for that. If we look at local independent or small brands, they differ in terms of the quantity that they're able to produce. Global brands are able to scale easily because they have the access to materials, to fabric, to teams who will work on them, or even, unfortunately, cheap labor, which is unethical. So they're able to scale. Versus small fashion brands, it's very difficult to do that in the Philippines because we're limited by, again, materials that you can use. But there are a few brands in the country, let's say Bench or Tension, who have the means to do it. They're also able to scale. But I would say that it takes them longer to follow trends. Because if you look at how trends work in the Philippines, and this is speaking on a general point of view, it takes us a year maybe to really adapt to global trends. When I say a year, that means you've been seeing it you probably wouldn't see it on social media. It's just the start of the trend. And then when it's everywhere, that's when it comes here, that's when people are more comfortable to use it. Does that make sense?
It does. It actually makes a lot more sense now that you explained it to me, because without that insight and info, I wouldn't be able to know what is happening, what is going on. Because like you're in the professional business side of things.
Yeah, it's like when you adapt the trend, you have to see if it fits your market. There are times when we are more conservative, so the design has to be tweaked that way and more conservative. And again, usually happens a year later when people are comfortable.
Here's a good question. In your opinion, how important is it for Filipino fashion designers to incorporate Filipino cultural elements into modern clothing?
In terms of saying how important it is, I don't think it's the goal of every designer to incorporate local materials, let's say. It's not the goal, we don't see it in our brands. But the importance is for brands who are able to do it, who are able to share what other provinces are able to do. When you look at the weaves, now if you go to Philippines, there are so many brands that use that, whereas 5 years, 10 years ago, people were not using it, right? So it's giving them livelihood, assuming it's done correctly. When it's warm and beyond, it also helps tell people about who we are. Like I remember my husband going to a wedding and then instead of using the usual suit and tie, he wore a barong. I also remember having a friend here, he grew up in Jakarta, so they have their own version of a barong. I forget what it's called. And when weddings in the Philippines, he doesn't wear the Filipino barong, he wears that one. So, you know, it's a way of telling your story through the Filipinos.
Here's another great question, in my opinion. What traditional fashion elements do you believe should be preserved in contemporary fashion?
Preserve. Preserve, do you mean it has to stay the same way? Like, let's say a Maria Clara has to look the same way.
Yes. It has to look the same.
Honestly, for me, I don't. It depends on context. There are times when you need to use it the right way. So you're going to a formal event, you want to wear Filipiniano, you wear the Maria Clara or the correct way. But casual day, I think it's great that people are incorporating those silhouettes because it's who we are, it's where, you know, that's our history. So if, let's say, we bring in Maria Clara sleeves or Barong Tela, but embroider something very playful, I don't think there's harm in that. I don't think we're destroying our heritage because, again, context. On a normal day shopping, you're not gonna wear a Maria Clara, but you can wear a butterfly sleeves.
Do you think it is acceptable for local designers to incorporate certain aspects from foreign styles to our traditional wear?
Then I don't think there should be any limit in creativity. Especially now, we were talking about globalization. You see inspiration everywhere. So, incorporate it, yes, but there is a fine line between incorporating and cultural appropriation. Just use it the right way at this point.
When local designers that modernize the traditional clothing of our country would get more exposure, would you think that it would benefit the clothing industry?
Yes. I hope so. My answer is I hope so. When they get known elsewhere, that's a good thing because again, they realize that how creative Filipinos are. Unfortunately, it's still a very real thing that people in other countries don't know. The Filipinos don't know who the Filipino is. So it's great when we're known for that, when we're known for our talent. I hope it helps the industry in terms of inspiring younger people who want to get into design. That it can be a sustainable business. It's something that you can earn from. And yeah, I hope it opens doors.
I also hope that also like gets more exposure.
I hope so.
The next segment is about Gen Z as well, consumer behavior. Um, First, um, based on your experience, what factors influence consumers when choosing clothing brands?
Social media, I would say for Gen Z. Social media, and they would choose a brand who they identify with, again, in terms of their values. So like I mentioned earlier, if it's sustainability, caring for the environment, if it's relating to who they love in entertainment and music, then they tend to skew towards that kind of icon. I think also because now, compared to 20 years ago, there are more options. So they're able to bring out their personality through what they wear. Before it was all basics. We were all, I remember going to college, we were all wearing the same thing because that was the only thing available. And it's great for them now.
Do you think Filipino Generation Z consumers tend to prefer foreign brands over local ones? Why or why not?
I'm not entirely sure on the correct answer, but I would think that it relates to how much they can afford. Unfortunately, foreign brands can be much cheaper than local brands. I mean, if you look at local brands, there are different price points. There are cheaper ones, but there are also some that are in like 5,000-10,000, right? But if we look at global brands, you can find them up for 200 pesos. So that's what you can afford. Then that's what you will probably go with. It's also a factor of so many micro trends because of social media. If you wanna get with the trends, of course you'll have to buy a cheaper one, right? You can't buy a 5,000 pack that you will use for 1 month. I also don't think there is, I don't know if they like repeating clothes because now it's, look at me, here's what I'm wearing today. You can't do that every day with the same thing. So that's when buying cheap but in volume comes in. And that's when, unfortunately, some local brands might not be as attainable because it's more expensive to produce here if you want good quality. Hence, prices are very high. So maybe they want it, but might not be within what they can afford.
What do you think are strategies can local designers use to make Filipino fashion more appealing to Generation Z, millennials, and others?
Aesthetic.
Aesthetics.
Play to their times. I think it's a big thing on storytelling. Telling who you are as a brand because again, it goes back to now they want something that reflects their personality. So if your brand story is attractive to them or they can relate to it, then they will tend to choose you. I think to a certain extent, influencers still work for Gen Z. That is one means in marketing if you want to
You mentioned influencers. How do you think that's is it a big factor? Is it a small factor?
Honestly, I think it's a big factor because they will look up to some and follow how they dress. That's also their way of seeing what's in fashion now or what's trendy. So they might
How can in the Filipino fashion industry help Generation Z appreciate local fashion as well cultural identity?
I think it's by what you were talking about earlier. It's by incorporating elements of Filipino fashion. Again, weaves, silhouettes, materials. I think that will help them understand what we have, which is very unique from other countries' locals, right? Or like looking at the pinya material, before it was only used for formal wear, now it's being used even for casual wear. So I think little things like that help them become aware of what we're able to create and what we have to
What would your advice be for Gen Zs that wear foreign clothing so that more people would like appreciate our style and wear more of our local fashion?
I don't think it's a bad thing if they wear foreign brands, but if they can incorporate with local brands, please do so because it takes a lot of work to produce that. And also, you look at your friends for inspiration. So if one of you is wearing it, tendencies your other friends will also ask you about it. It helps spread the word about local designers, local brands, and hopefully it gets more people to buy them.
Now for the final segment, the industry outlook as well future and vision.
I think we're in a very good place right now in terms of creativity and experimenting with fashion. I see so many brands, for lack of a better term, producing out-of-the-box designs. And what's great about it is now there are consumers who prefer that. I mentioned earlier that a lot of Filipinos tend to be conservative, but I think that because now, like you, I mean, what you're wearing today is fantastic. I don't see people wearing that every day. And because people are willing to experiment and wear that now, it allows designers to really put out, to experiment and to put out more unique designs versus trying to keep it to what's normally created, what you know will be bought by most people.
Since you mentioned the strengths of the local Filipino designers, I'm going to ask, what challenges do local fashion designers face in this industry?
It's very expensive to produce in the Philippines. If you want to do it practically, if you want to pay fair wages, I will admit when I started doing this, I was surprised by how expensive it would be to produce. Just to give you an idea, Zara is a higher price point. Fashion, but to produce it, it could cost you as much as one Zara dress. It's not on sale because you want to pay your seamstress fairly. If you want to uphold quality, you have to make sure that you use good fabric, good material, breathable, not polyester in the Philippines. And to be able to buy that, it's expensive here because unfortunately it's imported from other countries. So when it gets to the Philippines, so that is a big challenge. I think another thing is, and this is more on the government maybe, I don't think the Philippines is built to support SMEs, small medium enterprises. Like, look at our taxes. I don't think they enable us to make it a sustainable business. I have seen a lot of small businesses close just from the fact that they cannot afford to pay the tax being required, whether or not it's the correct amount that they are charged. So those are what I think are the big challenges here.
Now,
Sorry to add. Also, when I started, I realized also that it is cheaper to manufacture abroad. But I really wanted to have a Filipino seamstress. Her team, they're also Filipinas. And I felt that that was better versus sourcing, the manufacturing and producing.
now for the last and final question. Actually, second to the last. Do you believe local fashion has the potential to compete globally?
Yes, for sure.
Can you please explain?
The talent is there. Like again, I mentioned there's so much experimentation going on. Because of globalization, other countries are able to see local designs on Instagram, on TikTok, like wherever they are. So that is what will enable us to compete. It's not like we're in silos per country anymore. So it's not hard for people to see what we can do.
Now, for the actual last question, what advice would you give to emerging fashion designers today?
Know who your target audience is and understand what they want. But at the same time, stay true to what your gut tells you want to create. And I say that because when I was starting, I had designs that I ran by some friends. And of course I wanted to get their feedback because it was my first time doing this, right? And they were who I would say my target market. And the funny thing is there were some designs there that they were questioning. Like, paano yan gawin? Parang hirap. Or maybe you should do this or that instead. I don't take it against them. Again, feedback is feedback. It's always good. But for some that I strongly believe in, I put them out in the exact same way that I had in mind. And they were my best-selling pieces. So stay true to who you are, but try to balance it between what will be wearable for the audience you want.
That is all for the interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope that you do well in the future, and I also really appreciate that you're true to your words as well. You're honest to your words. Thank you very much.
Thank you.